you saw the title of this video, so let's just get straight into it. This Monday, on the 11th of November, I've been told that my position has been made redundant due to a recent change in the marketing team. Going forward, it's been decided that all the international marketing operations will be run from the UK. Additionally, being a native English speaker will be a major requirement. Knowing that there seems to be a trend for massive layoffs, as if it were 2022 all over again, I figured my experience might be helpful to some of you. This video will be split into 4 main chapters. First of all, I'm going to talk about my feelings in regards to being fired, and I hope it will serve as a source of validation to some of you. I know that not everyone can talk publicly about being fired and share their emotions about it. The second chapter will be about what to do right after you've been fired. So we will cover things like getting the most of your employment benefits if you still have some left, getting in touch with the union if you're a member of one, and looking at some unemployment benefits. Keep in mind that some details might differ here. I'm based in Finland, so in my case I have to follow the Finnish labor law and to a lesser extent the European Union labor law, I believe, so it might differ for you, but the underlying principles will remain the same, I believe. The third chapter will be about how to prepare for a layoff, and even if you're not expecting to get fired in the foreseeable future, I still recommend to take a look at this section because as the reality has showed us, no one is safe. No one's job is safe, and you literally never know when it might be your turn to leave the workplace. And in the final chapter, I will talk about the next steps. I will give you an overview of what I'm planning for my future career and life in general, and I hope that it will be more inspirational and will give you motivation to move forward. This video might turn out to be quite long, but I'm going to leave timestamps, so feel free to navigate to the section that interests you the most. And without further ado, let's move on to the chapter 1, or in other words, how do I feel about getting fired? I feel many different feelings and of course all at once. First of all, I feel quite pissed, but not for the reason you might think I am. The thing is, I didn't get any severance pay. Where I live and work in Finland, it's typical to buy employees out rather than firing them, because if you want to fire someone, then it's a very complicated process. You need to run a whole audit of your business, have multiple performance reviews, and yada 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 to be able to legally fire a person. So what companies normally do is they pay you 3 months worth of your salary in severance pay so that you would quit yourself. However, there is a twist to the system. If the company has less than 20 people employed, they don't have to provide you with a severance package. And guess what? That was my situation. My company didn't have to pay any severance, so they didn't. That, of course, left me with bitter feelings, but at least I didn't have to sign any NDA, so I can be vocal about my experience. At the same time, I also feel fine. I'm almost ashamed as to how normal and even happy I feel. I gotta say that I wasn't excited about my job or the company I was working for a few years now. I only worked for 3 years, out of which 2 I wasn't excited about it, but anyway. And I know that I worked in marketing, so I got it better than most people, but still, I think it's also fine to be dissatisfied when you feel dissatisfied. So leaving the company didn't feel like such a rejection because Mentally, I was already away from it for a long time. I already have plenty of ideas of what I might do next and a lot of excitement for them, which again makes me feel almost guilty as to being so happy about getting fired. I know that's not everyone's experience with being laid off, and the majority of people are usually depressed or anxious about it. So yeah, I feel happy, but I also feel bad for being happy. But on the other hand, when I think about it, you can feel whatever you need to feel. People are entitled to feel whatever they need to feel in the moment. So I guess I'm alright. And finally, of course, I feel dumbfounded. Not as much today, but on the day I received the news, it was such a shock. It forced me out of my routine, and for a while, I couldn't perform any of my normal tasks. I couldn't do any house chores, I couldn't do my skincare, and normally I'm a huge fan of skincare. I do it even when I'm sick. Work has been a major pillar of my routine. In fact, my whole routine has been structured around work because I had responsibilities and obligations and deadlines, and I didn't want to let people down. So now, without it, the whole foundation seems shaky. And with that being said, I want to remind you that whatever you're feeling right now is totally okay. If you feel frustrated, it's fine. If you feel happy, that's okay too. If you feel angry and you want to write a negative review on Glassdoor, go and do it. Just maybe don't do it right away. Take some time to process your emotions before you act on them. And another thing, now that you got this opportunity, try to enjoy it. I know it might be hard to see it this way, especially if you are anxious or you have an unstable financial situation or you're a bit depressed because of what happened, but really, try to enjoy this time and this newfound freedom. You can finally do all the things you've been postponing because of work. In this section, I want to talk about things you can, or in some cases should do, right after getting fired. I've prepared a few notes for myself, so I'm just gonna go through all these items one by one. And the first thing I want to bring up is do not panic. Even if you do not have an emergency fund, even if you don't have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved in your bank account, it is still okay. There's still plenty of payable jobs out there. Even though some of them might appear as not so attractive, if the only question is to get this next paycheck, I think it's totally fine to get whatever you can. Yes, some of these jobs might feel like a downgrade, some of them might pay way less than what you're used to, and some of them might look not as appealing. But again, if the only question is to make a living, then you should take whatever you can. And trust me, I approach it the same way. If none of my plans work, I'm very seriously considering becoming a dog groomer. The next thing is do not rush any decisions. You might already have some ideas of what you would like to do next, but I would highly recommend you to take some time and process these things, process this big change that just happened, and also process your ideas and all the potential implications. It might be quite good, actually, to create this good old pros and cons list for every idea so that you can evaluate all of them and see which one aligns with your values and your identity better. In any case, now that you have this opportunity, really take your time to pause and assess your situation. Trust me, the world is not going to collapse and you're not going to go into doubt if you just take 1 or 2 weeks to evaluate your ideas. What will happen though is you will make a much better choice of what works for you, and as a result of it, you will be also more confident in this choice, which will increase your chances of success. Now let's talk about more practical things. I would highly recommend you to try and stay on good terms with your previous employer, if possible, of course. I understand that situations differ, and in some cases you might have a toxic boss, a toxic work environment, and stuff like that. You don't have to act as a people pleaser, you don't have to be a pushover, you don't have to do anything of that. But if possible, it's always good to end on a more neutral note. Because in that case, you can ask your previous employer to be your reference, which you can use for your CV in the future recruitment processes, which will make things much easier. If for whatever reason it is not possible, then approach your colleagues and ask them to give you reference or introduce you to their networks. The next thing is super obvious, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I would suggest you to get familiar with the labor law in your country of residence. If, again, for whatever reasons it is not accessible to you, or you really struggle with understanding legal texts, then try to get in contact with somebody who works in HR or legal and can provide you with some advice. If this option doesn't work for you, then you can get in contact with a union. They usually have lawyers who can consult you on such matters. Last thing, if none of these options work, then just ask ChatGPT about your rights, how well you're protected in this or that scenario, and how much you can count on. Next, get the most out of your employment benefits. Now is not the time to be shy. Get in contact with HR and ask them how much you're still entitled to and for how long. If the HR is not cooperative, then get in contact with providers directly. It might be that your medical insurance is still valid. It is my case, for example, and I am planning to book as many doctor's appointments as I possibly can. It might be that you have some training budget left. It might be that you have access to some tool or application that will be useful for you in your future job research. Even if you're super introverted, or you have this belief that you do not want, quote-unquote, exploit these benefits, try to think of it in these terms. Because our economy is what it is, the employer will always get an upper hand. So if you do not fight for your rights, if you do not fight for what you're worth, nobody else will. And I'm not trying to act all communist, and I know that there are companies that genuinely care about their employees' well-being, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that we live in a capitalist society. All governments of the world will protect organizations' interests first and employees second. So please, learn how to take care of yourself. And finally, consider signing up for unemployment benefits. I know this is a tricky part, but again, this is not the time to be shy, especially if you're short on money. There is no shame in losing a job, there is no shame in asking for help or needing support. All of it is totally fine. So please, get in touch with the right people, send emails to whatever governmental institution takes care of these things, send requests, don't be bothered by rejections, send more. Potentially you might get something out of it, and especially if you're anxious about your financial situation, this will give you some buffer time and some much needed stability so you can think of what to do next. Now let's talk about how to get ready for a layoff. For starters, it's always good to prepare for such things because, let's be honest, no one's job is safe. Even if you're not thinking of potentially getting fired, even if you are a top performer, what the labor market has taught us in the last few years is that there is no single predictor of whether or not your current position is safe. So better get ready in advance. The first thing I would recommend you to do is to set up an emergency fund. You must have heard of it already, potentially multiple times, but it really is a game changer, and in my personal case, it is the sole reason as to why I'm taking my personal layoff so calm. Last year, I was very aggressive about saving and investing my money. So this year, especially now that I have been fired, I can take things at a much slower pace. So I can vouch for it. It really gives you a sense of security. And if saving 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses seems daunting right now, then start wherever you can. Start by saving 1 month worth of your expenses, 2 months worth of your expenses. Start by saving 500 euros, dollars, rupees, whatever is your preferred currency. If you just make up your mind about this and start by saving even the tiniest sum on a regular basis, in no time you will have this emergency fund ready. And the more you'll be saving your income, the more opportunities you will see to do so. You'll stop wasting your money on buying clothes that you don't wear, on home decor. You'll start opting for more second-hand options. That's what I do. I buy most of my clothes and almost all home decor exclusively second-hand. That's a great way to save money. What I'm trying to say is that start wherever you can. It's always better to have some money you can rely on than none at all. Next, consider becoming a member of a union or any other organization that takes care of employees and or workers' rights. And that's pretty much the whole tip. There is nothing more to add to it. The next one might be some people off, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Don't go above and beyond for your company, and in fact, try to do as little as possible. Take my situation for example. I didn't receive any severance package, so had I given my 100, my all to the company every day, I would have been even more pissed because what I was getting as a result of being fired was not proportionate to my own input. The best way to prevent this situation from happening is by reducing how much you do. Use all of your vacation days. Take as many sick leaves as you need. Pretend to be busy while actually automating your tasks to spend less time on them. Again, your interest as employee will always come second, so you'd better start protecting them yourself. Just wanted to add a few comments here. First of all, I'm not suggesting you to let other people down. When you work in a team, it's always better to treat people like you want them to treat you. So if I work with someone on a project, I will never do anything that would put this other person in an uncomfortable situation. And the second point, I am not suggesting you to be less of a hard worker. Please continue working hard, but also try to prioritize your own projects first. I noticed after working in my company for a while that I can do the same amount of work other people take 8 hours for in 6 or 4 hours. So started doing that, and these extra hours that I got as a result of it, I used for my own projects. I never use them for any extra crazy stuff the company might want me to do, but I use them to work on these videos or do house chores or exercise, and that's what I'm talking about. Please keep creating this visibility of working hard, but do not go above and beyond, or maybe go a little bit above and beyond so you can still get promotions and stuff, but just not too much. The next thing, be active on LinkedIn, really. I know now it's popular to criticize or even mock people who try to establish some online presence on LinkedIn, but trust me, being active on LinkedIn is really the best way to be noticed by either recruiters if you're considering a corporate job or potential clients if you're thinking about becoming a freelancer. If you're not comfortable with posting yourself because you're afraid of appearing controversial or opinionated or whatever that is, there are so many reasons as to why people might be uncomfortable with expressing themselves online, then commenting might be a good strategy. Commenting on other people's posts gives you as much, if not more, visibility than posting yourself. So do give it a shot and Really try to stay active on LinkedIn. Also, remember to update your profile, include relevant skills, update your job description, update your headline, just keep it more up to date. The same goes for your CV. Of course, you don't have to update it every few months, but it's always good once you've completed a project, once you've unlocked a new skill, it's always good to add it to your CV while it's still fresh in the memory, because otherwise you might forget it. And it's also good to ask your colleagues for references. I already talked about it in the previous section, so that you can also add it either to your LinkedIn CV, your LinkedIn profile, or even to your actual PDF formatted CV. And the final tip in this section is networking with a twist. I totally get it that not everyone is comfortable with approaching strangers and sort of befriending them. It's definitely hard for me, and I understand how it might be hard for somebody else. Instead, I would suggest you a different strategy, which is very simple and involves only one element, which says just be a nice person. Say hi to your colleagues. Try to have a small talk with them every now and then. Don't be afraid of meeting your classmates or colleagues outside of work, school, and just try to strike up a casual conversation. It doesn't have to be anything extraordinary, but maintaining good, and by good I mean neutral relationships with your colleagues, your boss, and other people might serve you in the long run. You never know where the next opportunity might come from, and in any case, it always pays off to be a nice person. And this is the final section of this video, and here I want to talk about my future plans. So, what am I planning to do now that I've been made redundant? First of all, as I mentioned in all the previous sections, I have an emergency fund set up, which means I'm not planning to rush anything. I'm planning to take things slowly, which leads me to the very first point, and it is taking care of all the things I've been postponing for a while because of work. I'm gonna spend some time really decluttering my apartment. I'm gonna sell one of the washing machines we have. Can you believe we have two washing machines and we've had them for a while now? So yeah, I really have to do something about it. Then I'm planning to properly clean my apartment. I usually never have time to do it in winter. I only do the basics like vacuuming, changing bed sheets, cleaning the toilet, wiping up the dining table. So now I want to clean the whole thing properly. Then I bought a few courses 2 or 3 weeks ago when there were like discounts on Udemy. I'm not sure how to pronounce the website's name, but it's one of these larger learning platforms. I've read that's a little bit better than Skillshare. I personally have never used Skillshare, but I've heard that it's only good for these introductory courses, and some people feel that it might be a bit basic. So yeah, anyway, long story short, I bought 5 courses there. Sorry, that's a pun. They were all on discount, and I just want to go through them one by one. So yeah, things of that nature. And then when all the chores have been done and I'm happy with the result, I want to take some time to rest. I want to go out for a walk in the middle of the day. In my previous life as an in-house marketer, it was a luxury. Now I want to do that. I want to go to the gym in the morning or around the noon when there are less people. I want to spend the whole weekend watching Christmas movies or reading a book that I really enjoy. Basically, I just want to take some time to relax and do whatever I want in the moment rather than preparing for the next week or the next day. Then I want to post more videos on this channel. I've been talking about it for a while, and now that I have these opportunities, I can finally do so. I still feel a little bit shy in front of the camera, which results in me taking a lot of time to film anything, pretty much anything, but I also feel that it would be a good practice for me. I've been now trying to film a little bit almost every day to get more accustomed to the feeling of being in front of the camera and just, I don't know, delivering things without a prompt, which is in any case a good public speaking exercise. Anyway, I feel like now is the time, so I really gotta do it. On top of that, I received so many positive comments on my last video. One person even left a whole story of their transformation process, which was a very beautiful read, and I'm very grateful for this comment. In any case, seeing these comments was another motivation booster, and not because I'm so vain and I want people to praise me for what I have to say, but because it feels like catching up with friends. When I publish my videos and I receive some reaction to them, especially if I see that if I see familiar faces, so to say, if I see familiar usernames in the comments over and over again, it really does feel like catching up with friends, and it just gives me this feeling of community and belonging. So yes, this feeling of belonging, of community is actually one of the greatest motivation sources and one of the main reasons as to why I want to commit to posting more videos on my channel. But now, on a more practical note, because I can't make money off YouTube, at least not yet, and it will probably take me a bit of time before I can. In any case, my plan for my future career is to become a freelancer. I've been thinking about it, and I've come to the realization that I'm not cut out for corporate. No, but really, I've noticed that I'm this type of person who can get a lot of stuff done in a short period of time. I can get all of my work done in like 4 hours, something like that. So having to spend more than that in front of the desktop pretending to be busy just feels like a waste of time. And if I try to be productive for longer, I've already tried that, and I know from experience that it just gives me a burnout. Unfortunately, I cannot sustain this 9 to 5 lifestyle. It really doesn't correspond with my I do not know, natural makeup, let's call it that way. Additionally, I have this big mental existential issue with having to work for someone. It really rubs me the wrong way that even though technically I have full ownership over my free time, if I want to take a sick leave, if I want to go on vacation, I still have to ask my supervisor about it. I still have to check with them that there are no extra projects, that somebody can take care of my tasks while I'm away, and stuff of that nature. And I know that it is just a formality, and for most people it's not a big deal. But for me it is. I want to be my own boss. I want to decide when I work and when I don't work. I know that on some days I have more energy and on others I have less, and I want to be able to adjust my routine based on that. I know that I'm pretty independent, I'm quite organized, I have absolutely zero issues with sticking to deadlines, with discipline. My major issues actually come from the lack of rest, from not being able to unwind after a full day of work. Of course, I'm under no illusion, and I know that self-employment usually means that you have to work even more. But when I think of the fact that I will be working for myself, the amount of work doesn't scare me anymore. So I definitely want to give it a shot. I will be offering some marketing services. I will probably try to work as a freelance writer, and we'll see how that goes. If this plan doesn't work, then I can always go back to corporate and work in marketing or communications there. If the plan B doesn't work, then as I talked, well, maybe being a dog groomer is my fate after all. In any case, I'm not overly worried about my future prospects. I feel surprisingly supported in many ways. Of course, on one hand, I have this emergency fund, which I talked about a lot in this video already, but I feel somehow confident in my future, even from a more I don't know, mental, spiritual perspective. It really feels like some greater force is leading me towards a better life, towards the next better, brighter chapter of my life. I know that this part might not resonate with everyone, but I am a spiritual person and I have like absolutely zero issue with admitting the fact that, yes, I do feel that this particular fact of me being fired is somehow a blessing in disguise. Even if you're not a spiritual person, I think it's still good to have this mindset that everything works in your favor. After all, it's always a 50-50% chance, so why not to believe in something that's advantageous to you? Otherwise, you just let your motivation, your confidence, yourself in general be crippled by anxiety. And do you want that? Probably no. And this is it. This is a very long video, but I hope you found it useful anyway. And as always, I wish you a great day and I will see you next time. Bye bye.